Coming to you, pre-recorded from Casa de Regis in Culver City, California, it's the Reggie and Regis podcast!
Welcome to episode 8 of the Reggie and Regis podcast. I am your host, Reggie Bobin. To my left is my co-host, Regis.
Yes, Regis, one name like Madonna or Cher, but younger and way less talented.
Today, for episode 8, we're going to be talking about our favorite sports films. Obviously, we're going to throw out a number of them. Hopefully, we'll just have some fun with it. But before that...
obviously, we know things are a little, and by a little, we mean a lot, unorthodox right now. Hopefully, all you guys out there are staying safe. Hopefully, you guys are staying sane. Obviously, this is a sports podcast, and we're recording this here on Saturday, May 2nd. And today, on the sports calendar, the first Saturday in May is typically a very busy day.
Yeah, today would have been a Kentucky Derby.
Yeah, and typically on the night of the first Saturday in May, there's a big either boxing or UFC type event.
We're going to have a couple playoff games, whether it's the ending of the first round of the NHL and NBA playoffs, early parts of the second round. So
yeah, and we would have had some stuff in the first round to talk about for that. We would have still had Major League Baseball going on, but given that none of that is happening at this moment, we're kind of. We figured since all of you guys are at home watching your streaming services on your couch and chilling and watching old movies and TV series, we figured we'd go back and kind of gloss over some of our favorite sports movies that we've seen over the course of our lives.
Absolutely. Again, we thought, in this day and age that we're living in right now, how fun would it be to reminisce about sports movies, just growing up, sports movies that are just enjoyable, are still relevant even to this day. We have a whole list of that, and we're going to try to get to as many as we can within the next hour.
Yeah, I have like 50 or 60.
I saw that list. I'm like, Jesus, it's only an hour, but we're just going to touch upon a few of them. But I think the one that we should start off with was one of the first sports movies I remember watching growing up, which was Rocky.
Yeah, if you look up the term sports movie in the dictionary, there's a good chance you're going to see the original release poster for Rocky next to the entry in that dictionary itself.
It's such a good movie. And, the irony about Rocky is I hated it as a kid because the hero lost. I couldn't grasp the concept of, going the distance and basically just coming out of nowhere and just shocking the world. It was just kind of like he lost. That's why I always prefer 3 and 4, even though looking back on it, although Mr. T is a great character and, it's just, I was just like, it's such a great film. And it's the first film to win Best Picture in the Academy Awards.
Well, among sports movies anyway.
Among sports movies, yeah. Obviously.
Yeah, and to be honest, Rocky 4 was a 90-minute long music video with a couple of fight scenes.
Great montages. Still the greatest montage movie ever.
It was a music video, but yes, the montages were excellent in that movie. And Rocky 3...
Clubber Lang.
Yeah, Rocky 3, you could tell the franchise was getting tired, but Mr. T gave one of the all-time fucking excellent performances I've ever seen.
Can you predict how the fight's going to go? Pain. Or something like that. I don't know.
No. There's a scene where they're unveiling a statue. Yeah, come here, one.
I'm sure we could do a lot of quotables from that.
We could probably do a whole episode of quotables from the Rocky series.
He might actually be my favorite character in all the Rocky films. But getting back to the original Rocky, so many great characters in that particular film. You had Paulie, you had Mickey, you had Adrian, you had even a shiesty loan shark who was paying Rocky to break people's thumbs.
Yeah, and it's interesting the way the beginning of the movie is set up, right? Because at the beginning, he's fighting in a church. He walks out with what, $20-30?
If even. I think the guy who owned the gym kind of stiffed him a little bit, but could have been something.
He was definitely doing the fighters dirty. But he walks out with $20 or $30. Then the next scene you see him in is going to these stockyards in Philly, being this kind of loan shark's enforcer, and you're left to question, is this a character we're supposed to root for? Is this the bad guy? The way John Avildsen set it up, it led to a lot of questions until later on in the movie.
I think, even as a young kid watching that movie, I always got the feeling Rocky had good intentions. He just had to do what he had to do to survive. And, I'm not going to say I've ever been there or you've ever been there, but, there's certain things that you got to do. I don't think he liked having to kind of being like, I guess, an enforcer.
Yeah.
You know, just a collector or whatever you want to call it. But, you know, he had a good intentions. I always kind of grasped that from him. I always kind of remember feeling sorry for him. And when, you know, kind of like his relationship with Adrian started, you know, to kind of form, and kind of even that kind of dicey relationship with Mickey. You'd be like, you're a bum, you're a tomato can. But you could see there was love there.
No, exactly. Mickey was just trying to motivate him.
Yeah. Or maybe, yeah, I guess, yes, exactly. He sees like, he might have some potential, but he just doesn't really work hard. So he wanted to, that's that great scene actually where Stallone gets drunk, and when he has the title shot against Apollo Creed, which is, by the way, one of the great characters of all time.
Oh, yeah. And Carl Weathers absolutely murdered that role in the wrong actor's hands. That character could have been somebody that, like, the audience wouldn't have even paid attention to, let alone hated/loved.
Right. But that the great scene where Mickey wants to train Rocky because he knows he's got this big kind of title shot, and you know, Rocky kind of goes off on him. It's just like, you know, I go, you want to like train me, and it was great. And you see Mickey feels bad. It was just so much emotion, and you know, Rocky chases him down and says, and that's when the whole montage, and also one of the great montages ever, just running up the stairs. How iconic is that? If you ever been to Philadelphia and you don't run up those stairs, I mean, you haven't lived life.
Yeah, I've been to Philadelphia.
That's on my bucket list.
Look, I'll put it this way. I've been to Philadelphia, but it was only a layover on a flight, so I didn't get the chance to run the Rocky stairs. But interesting alleged tidbit about that movie. You know what actually inspired Stallone to write the script for Rocky?
Yes, I do. Actually, a big boxing guy, Chuck Wetner.
Yeah, the Jersey Bleeder, Chuck Wetner.
Jersey Bleeder, yeah.
Yeah, he had a fight against Muhammad Ali back in 1974 at the Richfield Coliseum, which is just outside of Cleveland. It is off of Exit 12 on I-271. Actually, no, it was, because if you go there now, it's actually the arena that Cavs played in from 74 to 94. There's just a big open field there now. You would never have known that there was, you know, all these great boxing fights and it was an NBA arena. It is just an open field reclaimed by nature. And
I remember, well, I didn't mean to cut you. I remember seeing that fight on like ESPN Classic, and you know, like Muhammad's, like Ali's at the end of his career. But I remember just thinking, like, wow, this guy went the distance with him. Actually knocked him down, kind of a little bit. We don't know if he stepped on his foot or whatnot, but it was counted as a knockdown.
Yeah, well, the experts only thought Wepner was going to last, 3 or 4 rounds
exactly,
at the most.
Yeah, exactly.
So the fact that he went the distance, yeah, he didn't win the fight, but he went the distance, said a lot about Wepner's character at that time. And that's where, Stallone came up with the idea of basically the quintessential underdog story.
Yeah, and again, like it's still a movie that resonates today. I mean, you could watch it right now and you can understand the characters.
Exactly.
And that's the beauty of it.
Exactly. And, we live in an era where Hollywood is trying to reboot every, intellectual property idea imaginable. And yes, there have been 7 other films in the Rocky franchise. If they were to actually just reboot that story and call it something else, people wouldn't be pissed for once.
And again, as I mentioned earlier, again, the first sports movie to win the Academy Award. That's probably like that's where my sports, as far as just like movie knowledge, begins with. What was yours, Regis?
Oh, you actually said it right for once.
I was going to call you Reggie. I'm sorry.
No, you're Reggie.
I'm so vain. I know. I'm so narcissistic. I know.
What do you think? I'm an extension of yourself. Anyway, the first sports movie I'd say that really resonated with me, and it's because it came out when I was 7. I'm going to go with The Sandlot.
Oh. Good one. The summer of '93. Holy God.
Yeah, it's one of those things that if you want to look at baseball as Americana, I don't think any other movie did that better than The Sandlot, right? You had amusement park scenes. You had like the Founders Day Parade, whatever, whatnot. You had kids playing all against each other in like an open field in like a dirty lot. They weren't even an organized team. When they beat the piss out of the other team that like has all the bikes and everything, it's just like you just love these kids.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that stands the test of time. You could watch it now, and even like some kids who weren't even born in that particular era when The Sandlot came out can quote that film, and they just love it. I think it's an American classic, not just like sports wise. Just like you have to show your kids. If you have kids, they have to watch The Sandlot.
Oh yeah, and there's so many great characters in it. I mean, obviously Patrick Renna steals the movie as Hamilton Porter.
Yeah.
And he's still acting in commercials today. He's got so many great quotes. And then of course, actually a funny story. I was in I want to say like 4th or 5th grade. They had an assembly at the end of a Friday afternoon, so they showed it. And what ruined that watching of the movie for me was that all the young girls were screaming for Benny the Jet Rodriguez whenever he comes in for his scenes. But honestly, I think the most relatable character to the story, even more so than Squints, because I mean, let's face it, the Wendy Peppercorn stuff was just awesome. Was the main kid? I'm forgetting the main character.
What was his name again?
You're killing me, Smalls.
That's right, Smalls.
Scotty Smalls.
You actually, his introduction in the film, I don't know if it was actually his introduction, but remember that cat that he had?
Oh, the salmon thing?
What the hell was that?
That bill was larger than his head.
It looked like, it did look like I was just like, what the hell? But I mean, how could you not love, how about the cameos by, not cameos, but guest appearances by James Earl Jones and Dennis Leary? Early Dennis Leary. Yeah,
Dennis Leary, who was just coming, he was still kind of doing stand-up at the time. I think this was one of his first ever film roles.
Yeah, and he crushed it, too.
Yeah, and...
he was actually likable.
Yeah, it's kind of surprising given, the way his career would go after this and the kind of roles he would take on and, like, The Ref and Rescue Me and things like that.
Yeah, kind of these asshole roles, which I've come to love about Dennis Leary.
No, he nails those characters.
Yeah, but he was great. And how about, like, just the characters in general? Just kind of, like, variety of just, like, these kids just, like... And like, I mean, it's just like different backgrounds, different, like, I was surprised because, when you think about like that particular time, you wouldn't thought like, kids like kind of like just like different cultures playing with each other in that sense.
Well, and not only that, it's...
at least that's one thing I got from the film.
As an adult, like you can definitely tell like the 60s references, like this would have been the era when my dad was that age. But
Exactly.
when I first watched it in 1993, I didn't pick up any 60s kind of nostalgia from it. I thought like, no, this could be today.
Right, exactly.
In a little bit of a different sense, but yeah.
Right, outside of the clothes and, the cars and everything. How about the s'mores? I mean, how many of us made s'mores? How many of us even knew what s'mores were before that film?
I did.
I didn't.
Well, yeah, because I grew up in Country Bumpkin, Ohio.
Okay. Okay. But one of the great films, and
it set off a run of children's-oriented sports films, particularly with baseball.
Yeah. We had a few of them. Ages in the Outfield, like a few years later, or like 1 year later.
Yeah, well, over like an 18-month span from like, I want to say April of 93 to about August of 94, you had... Rookie of the Year, which came out right around the same time, the film debut of Thomas Ian Nicholas, who would go on to fame in American Pie. You had Little Big League the next year. You had Angels in the Outfield, which was Joseph Gordon-Levitt's first big movie. But you had some other movies too. Shortly after that run. In addition, and that was also the time you had the Mighty Ducks movies.
Yeah. A lot of these kind of like kiddie kind of films, which were very enjoyable. I have to admit one thing. I've only seen the Mighty Ducks once.
The original or the second one?
The first one.
Okay, because we're going to pretend the third one doesn't even exist.
I do that with The Godfather, actually. Like, I don't know. It's kind
no, that's perfectly understandable. Like a fun fact about the Mighty Ducks franchise. D2, the Mighty Ducks, came out 5 days after Major League 2. So if you're keeping score at home, there was a sequel in a sports franchise that featured an Estevez brother on screen at the same time.
Yeah, that's a good show. Did you look that one up or did you just know that?
I half looked it up. I knew it was around the same time. Like I had to look up the dates for sure, but yeah. D2 The Mighty Ducks came out March 25th, 1994. That was my sister's 6th birthday, and Major League 2 came out 5 days later.
That's actually a good point that you just brought up. Not necessarily Major League 2 because I kind of forget that one exists as well. Like I
that was okay,
but the 90s was like the era of the child. Athletic movies. I mean, we haven't really seen that. We didn't see that in the 80s. We
definitely haven't seen that since the 2000s.
Exactly. I mean, that was kind of that era. That's kind of like an interesting point that you just brought up. That it just kind of hit me. Like, yeah, there was so many like kind of like these like kind of young adolescent movies of, had Varsity Blues at the end of that particular year.
Varsity Blues was kind of the more grown-up version of...
I mean, yeah, James Van Der Beek was like already 30 at that time, but
No, I meant more grown-up in content, not more grown-up in the actors
you mean like Scott Conn and all those guys? I mean, like, oh yeah, I mean, I'm like, these don't look like high school guys.
Yeah,
whatever.
Who'd have thunk that, when The Sandlot and all that came out, and you're...
Which are kids.
Yeah, exactly. You're... you're selling this movie to 8, 9, 10-year-old kids. You're trying to be as wholesome as you can. That these same kids 5, 6 years later would be watching Charlie Tweeter pop Vicodin, drink his face off, and steal cars. And watch Allie Larder in her first big film role absolutely rock the whipped cream bikini.
Oh my God! I remember. I didn't actually see that in the theater. I saw that like a year later, I think, when it came on like HBO or Stars or one of those things. I remember seeing that. I was waiting to actually see that, particular scene, because I'm thinking, how did they actually pull that off?
Shaving cream.
Oh, there you go. You would know. But I just remember it's again, Varsity Blues, and we're talking about like this is what, 99 when this movie came out?
Came out in January of 99. So it was filmed in the summer of 98, right after Vanderbeek completed his first season of Dawson's Creek.
Right. Definitely, you could see a shift between when the early 90s of the kind of like sports movies were a little bit more wholesome, and then towards the end, it gets a little bit more raunchier.
Yeah. I'll put it this way. Like, if the way I like to look at pop culture, like 1998 to about late 2001 is what I like to call the extreme era. It was basically, put women in the skimpiest outfits possible,
right.
Try and push the envelope as much as you can with like the sex, drugs, and alcohol, and market it all to teens. And of course, I was, in high school in that era, so I absolutely loved all of this. And if there was any one movie that typified that culture and MTV's influence on it, I think Varsity Blues is kind of like the standard bearer when it comes to that, sports or not.
What was that famous line that Vanderbeek's character had? Like, you don't control my life.
No. No, he's talking with his dad, and it's the last.
Was it his dad or John? Oh, no, okay.
No. John Voight was the coach.
Gotcha.
John Voight was the coach. He's talking, with his dad, and his dad had been a player for West Canaan High School, and he's like, "You have your opportunity ahead of you against Gilroy this Friday, boy. You need to keep your head in the game." He's like, "I don't want your life."
There you go. I knew I'd bust that one. I knew you'd come and save me on that one. But that was...
I kind of stumbled at the beginning of that. I was trying to think of the setup. But
the 90s actually had some really, really good sports movies. The Program was actually one that I enjoyed.
Yeah, that was that was a college football movie.
Yes.
It was really more
James Caan, Omar Epps.
Yeah, it was really
Berry.
It was really more to expose kind of like the seedy underbelly of college recruiting, the actual game itself, and everything that goes on underneath that.
And another one, Above the Rim.
Yes, well, Above the Rim was Above the Rim was a good basketball movie, and of course there was a run of basketball movies from about 92 to 94 that were great. Of course, the one memorable thing about Above the Rim was its soundtrack.
Yeah, the soundtrack, the Death Row soundtrack. I mean, you had some Dog Pound, some Snoop, you had some Pac before he joined Death Row, but still an amazing soundtrack.
Yeah, and Warren G's Regulate. You still hear that one
how did I
today.
forget that one? Oh my God, it's one of the most famous rap songs ever, and I forgot that one.
R.I.P. Nate Dogg.
But that also dealt with the only reason why I brought that one up. It dealt with college athletics as well, as far as the rules and basically just like I don't know.
Well, another basketball movie from that. Not just that same year, I think that same month was Blue Chips.
Blue Chips, yeah. Shaquille and Penny.
Yeah.
And that guy from Indiana, nobody remembers his name.
God. Yeah, it's actually kind of funny. I looked this up. Blue Chips, Above the Rim, D2 The Mighty Ducks, Major League 2. Am I forgetting any? They all came out within a month of each other.
1994.
March of 1994.
Blue Chips is actually a good one. That's
Nick
one of my
Nolte.
that's one of my favorite go-tos. Nick Nolte imitating Bob Knight. I mean, that was pretty much the character.
Yeah, it was.
How about Nolte just like, well, you guys gotta do this, and it just don't. It was just like, oh my God, this is so excellent.
Well, to be fair, he did a better job of imitating Bob Knight than Brian Dennehy did in
Jesus, that was horrible.
In 2002's what was it, A Season on the Brink?
A Season on the Brink.
R.I.P. Brian Dennehy. He just died not too long ago. But yeah, he could not pull off that character at all.
No, but obviously two different movies. But that was 94 in particular. I forgot how good of a year. And you also had a documentary, not maybe a movie, but Hoop Dreams. I was going to say Blue Chips. Hoop Dreams, one of the all-time great documentaries of all time. It's a great
story.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a chance to check it out, I would fully advise you to, because it is really just, it has, again, when I look at anything, whether it's a movie, a documentary, I look for like just variety, just like all kind of qualities, heartwarming. You know, you could see hard times, you could see just like just a little bit of everything. Hoop Dreams is a documentary I would recommend.
And for those of you who are unfamiliar with the story, basically this documentarian follows these two kids through high school.
Arthur Agee and William Gates.
Yes, William Gates. And they have all this natural talent that makes you think, oh, they can go on to the next level. You know, they get recruited by this kind of more upper echelon type school, and you kind of see a little bit of everything going on. Obviously, you're rooting for these kids to succeed. They didn't exactly have, you know, the best of upbringing, but one thing I love about that film is it explores it from every possible angle.
Yeah, and it shows you just the years. You can see these kids grow up in front of you. Like literally just like, I mean, it was just like Arthur's character. He was just like a tiny little skinny kid. And by the time it was done, he had like, you could tell he was obviously a little bit taller. He just looked different. And the one thing I always took away from that film with both characters, if you saw both, I guess not characters, but both kids, was at the beginning of Hoop Dreams, you know, they had these aspirations and these dreams of making it to the NBA. And by the time the documentary is over, both of them are kind of like, you know what? I really don't. It really doesn't matter to me if I make it or not. I mean, it did. I don't. It was kind of just like not weird, but it was just like kind of a maturation of just like, okay, you know what? I might make it, I might not, but you know, I really don't care anymore.
Yeah, exactly. As we were saying, 1994 was a year of all of these coming-of-age type sports films, because you can really see that in Above the Rim as well.
Definitely.
But this was kind of a coming-of-age in somewhat, I'm not going to say in a reverse sense, but more of a realistic sense.
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it, Reggie. It was just a kind of a realistic. Again, I don't want to give away too much of it. You know, I mean, it's a very well done documentary. Obviously, we have this great The Last Dance documentary going on right now,
which we're going to do a deep dive on in a few weeks. Obviously,
we will do a deep dive on that. But I would recommend Hoop Dreams, 1994. It's one of the great documentaries you will ever see.
And there's one last movie from 94 we haven't hit yet. Hoop Dreams deals very much in reality. This movie deals very much in fantasy. Little Giants.
Little Giants. How about Rick Moranis and Ed O'Neill?
Yeah, Rick Moranis having just come off Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. Ed O'Neill at the height of Married with Children's popularity.
Yeah. What was that? What were the characters in that one? Icebox. There was
Icebox, Becky O'Shea.
Yeah. That's a cute film. That kind of falls between the cracks. I don't think a lot of people kind of remember that all that much. Not like The Sandlot.
There are 4 words that make sure anybody remembers Little Giants. Annexation of Puerto Rico.
Yes. That's a... I don't know how I forgot that one. I haven't seen it in a while. I got to brush up on my...
literally, last year in a college football game, Tulane was playing Houston, and Tulane ran the annexation of Puerto Rico to win the game against Houston on a Thursday night.
Wow.
And Pat McAfee was calling the game, which made it so much better.
Oh, geez. That's I gotta check that clip out. How about a few other 90s films? We're going to kind of skate back through. We'll touch upon some of the 80s. We haven't forgotten the 80s yet. But what about White Men Can't Jump?
We were talking about basketball films from that 92 to 94 era. It's kind of interesting that, Woody Harrelson, who's this lanky kid from Indiana, ends up having all of this basketball talent.
Yeah. I knew Woody Harrelson from Cheers. The chemistry with him and Wesley Snipes is incredible. I mean, the basketball scenes, especially now, are kind of corny. I mean, Wesley Snipes' basketball scenes are very corny,
which is kind of disappointing because even in Major League, you knew the guy wasn't a professional athlete, but he could play the role of the flashy hotshot outfielder / speedster really well.
Yeah, but I mean, I that's one of kind of my go-to is if I see it, on my TV, I'm like, oh, I haven't seen this movie in forever. Rosie Perez is in it. I feel like I'm forgetting one more person. Oh, actually,
Alex Trebek had a cameo.
Yeah. Oh, the famous hook shot. See, I think we all tried that one time. Like a bunch of our friends. It was just like, oh, hit the white man can't jump shot. Oh, we played the white man can't jump contest with I guess when Wesley Snipes' character and Woody Harrelson, when they first meet, and they had that little kind of shoot off.
Right.
Yeah. We always called it the white man can't jump contest.
No, I just remember the first time I saw that movie. I'm like, they have a basketball court like that near the beach. Like, how awesome was that?
I saw, I saw. I remember thinking that too. I'm like, that must have been A, super fucking cool, and B, super fucking annoying because of that wind that comes from the beach.
Yeah, of course, we live 10 minutes away from there now.
Oh.
We know exactly what that area is like. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you look at that as like, I just want to play basketball there once.
Yeah, we've actually both been to that particular court.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's pretty cool. It's pretty dope. It's like, I'm like, okay. Yeah.
And one thing that movie got right is that a lot of those guys who are regulars there, those dudes can ball.
Oh yeah, they can ball. They got some serious games over there. Like some real fist fights. If you if you foul or if you come too hard at somebody, they will fight you.
And
it's pretty rough.
And I'm sure there's some money on those games too.
Yeah, I won't deny that. How about another one? He Got Game.
Oh, came out 22 years ago this week.
Yes. Denzel and the young Ray Allen. Jesus, Shuttlesworth.
It's kind of funny you bring up this right after White Men Can't Jump. Spike Lee wanted to make sure he had a young, talented basketball player playing the Jesus Shuttlesworth role, partially after watching Wesley Snipes and White Men Can't Jump.
Yeah, he wanted to be as authentic as possible. So he would rather cast in, which they actually wanted Kobe Bryant. The late, great Kobe Bryant was actually Spike's first choice. But Kobe was kind of immersed in trying to be the best. Kobe was doing Kobe things, even at that age.
Well, he only averaged 8 points a game his first season.
And then he came back, and so he passed on the part. So Spike casted Ray Allen, who I thought did a wonderful job. And even going against a guy like Denzel, he held his own pretty well.
Well, I'm sure Denzel probably helped him out between takes and stuff like that.
I'm pretty sure. But it's that great kind of father and son. Father is just kind of harsh on the Jesus Shuttlesworth as a kid growing up, just trying to push him to be better. And I don't want to give away too much of the movie, but it just kind of comes back, goes to prison, accidentally killed his mom, and then they kind of have to bridge that gap together.
Yeah, and Ray Allen does a great job being an 18-year-old kid under the pressure of dealing with college recruiting.
Exactly.
And all that stuff. I thought he played the character really well.
Yeah, he did, and they had some great cameos. Rick Fox was in that. They had some, some video cameos of Michael Jordan saying he got game, and then they had, how about that one particular scene when he goes to visit one of the universities, and they got the two, I guess, call girls, hookers,
right,
ladies of the night.
Yeah,
and those are actually legitimate porn stars.
Oh, I believe that.
I don't watch that stuff, so I wouldn't know who their names are. That's something I found out on IMDb, but just say. But
well, they didn't have IMDb back in 1998, or if it did, it was very nascent.
Right, but just over the last few years. Anyway, but I found the kind of realistic, especially being immersed in basketball. It was very realistic the way the recruiting goes, and as we see now, it's like college recruiting is very shady.
Oh, I mean. It's a fucked up business.
So it's just and everybody around is just trying to get money and whatnot. So that was very realistic. That 22 years ago? Wow, 1998. I was a senior in high school when that came out.
No, I remember seeing an ad for it while watching that year's NCAA tournament.
That was the year, I believe.
That was the year of the Bryce Drew 3 over for Valpo over Mississippi in the first round.
Kentucky won the NCAA championship.
Kentucky
they beat
Utah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Tubby Smith's only title there.
Tubby Smith and Rick Pitino, kind of basic, but we've kind of seen that play out in sports. But so I think we pretty much covered all the good ones of the 90s.
Well, there's one person who had a great run of sports films even before the 90s, but even throughout the 90s, who we haven't really touched on yet.
And who would that be?
That would be Mr. Kevin Costner.
Kevin Costner. We were talking about that before. Kevin Costner is the GOAT of sports movies.
He had what? He's probably had about 6 film roles. Of course, his first big one was Bull Durham, which, I'm going to channel my inner Bill Simmons here. Was Bull Durham really a sports movie? Or was it just a rom-com with a baseball backdrop?
I mean, you can't possibly basically just pose that question and think, wait a minute, like, how could that not be no, it's a baseball film. I mean,
have you
it's
seen
probably
Tim Robbins try to pitch?
It's probably, well, okay, we're not going to talk about Tim Robbins. I think that was actually a gag that they just, whoever directed, I think it was Ron Shelton, basically was just like, whatever. It was a gag. That's a sports film. It's sports film, rom-com second. Costner does not only a great job. Kurt Russell was actually up for that role, and Russell had played a little baseball growing up, so he couldn't take the part for whatever reason. Costner takes the part, not only knocks it out the park, no pun intended. I mean, he looked the part of a baseball player. That Kurt Russell actually wrote him a letter stating how incredibly impressed he was by his performance. Costner could pull those kind of parts off because he just was athletic enough, and he was kind of like the common man, even like whatever films that you want to talk about.
Yeah,
like
well, he tries playing another baseball player again 11 years later in For Love of the Game.
For Love of the Game, and he pulls that off very well. So Over the Hill, I think the character's name was Chappell.
Billy Chappell.
Billy Chappell. And he's kind of like, if you don't know the premise of the movie, it's basically, I'm not going to give too much, although I probably will. It's basically Costner's character is an aging pitcher who's in the midst of a perfect game. And you have
it's the last game of the season, so there's the possibility it could be his last ever start.
And you have the great Vince Scully announcing the game, which is awesome. And I think he's playing for the Tigers and they're playing the Yankees. And throughout the, each inning as he's throwing this perfect game, he's reliving kind of like past experiences, whether it's love, whether it's with his child, just his career overall.
Some baseball or things like that.
And he pulls it off perfectly. I mean, he's the sports Michael Jordan.
No, he's
of movies.
Well, his acting performance was really good in that, and of course, the fact that he plays an over-the-hill pitcher means he didn't actually have to look all that great, even though he did look like an older athlete.
Well, yeah, he had McFarlane. He had Draft Day. Draft Day he pulled off very well. And
I will say this as a lifelong Cleveland Browns fan, I have still not mustered up the courage to watch Draft Day because it gives the Browns hope, which, let's face it, we never have any. And B, the trades they pull off are just completely nonsensical.
not realistic at all.
No, but he did have he had Tin Cup in '96.
Tin Cup is one of my favorites. I mean, he was what was this? Roy Tin Cup?
Roy McAvoy.
And
it's kind of weird.
A lovable goof.
It's kind of weird that that's not the only golf movie in 1996 that featured a lovable goof. We'll get to the other one. But the interesting thing is that Rene Russo's character comes up to him at the end. She's like, yeah, it doesn't matter what else you did today. All anybody was going to remember is this last shot, which is ironically probably the only thing from that movie anybody actually remembers.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, how about, you had Cheech Marin in there.
Yeah.
Cheech and Chong. Yeah, Don Johnson was in there. It was actually a very good film. It was a very kind of like, I love the character. I love the Tin Cup character.
Yeah, and as much as Roy McAvoy was a snarky asshole, perhaps his most famous sports movie role.
Well, yeah, it's, again, no matter how, and I've probably seen this film more than a dozen times. I think all the aspects of it just get to me, but this particular clip we're going to play right now is, and I've seen even Major League Hall of Famers admit that they break down when this scene comes on.
Basically, if you talk to any guy who's seen this movie, if he tells you that he didn't get emotional with the clip that we're about to play, he's either lying or emotionally dead inside.
Hey, Dad? You want to have a catch? I'd like that.
I'm already crying right now. I mean, I don't sound like I am, but I'm crying inside. That is a iconic scene. If there's ever been any not even sports history.
In a movie that has a ton of emotion in it to begin with.
Yeah.
With the whole Terrence Mann character.
Terrence Mann.
And Moonlight Graham giving up his dream to, relive his baseball career to save Ray Kinsell's kid.
Exactly. And the one thing that I love about this movie, because I'm somebody, I believe in redemption. And, we can all do things in the past and that we wish that we can change. But do we ever get that opportunity to do it? So this film in general, like, kind of is a reflection of that. Like, you can't have a second chance to kind of make things right. Obviously, the point being his dad. If you build it, he will come. And then at the end, it's just like, I'm gonna start bawling if I talk about this anymore.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a fantasy movie.
It's a fantasy movie, but it's a good fantasy movie.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not even. Again, I'm going to sound like a Debbie Down here. Like, I'm not even sure if it's necessarily a sports movie itself, because you could replace baseball with something else and still tell the same story. But I don't think you could have the kind of gravity that you did with its audience if it weren't baseball.
Which actually is a good point. It's not your generic sports film. That's why when you asked earlier, is Bull Durham? I'm like, Bull Durham is more of a sports film than Field of Dreams. But Field of Dreams, obviously, with the aspects of the baseball, the ghost players and what was it? Shoeless Joe Jackson, played wonderfully by Ray Liotta, and just kind of like that aspect of it with the family aspect. Yeah, it's a sports film. But yeah, I mean, you'll hear some pushback. I don't know. Has anybody ever claimed that Field of Dreams is not a sports movie? I don't know. I've never heard that.
Well, to be fair, the only person who really has ever done a deep dive on this subject as extensively as he has is Bill Simmons, and he's done it numerous times over the course of his career.
I think he has a podcast on Field of Dreams on Rewatchables, but no, it's a sports film, and it's one of the iconic ones, and it's still probably, is it my favorite? I think it's in my top 5. It's in my top 5.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those ones that it hits you in the feels every time, no matter how many times you watch it.
Yeah. I mean, and, the 80s had some great sports films as well. I mean, we touched on the 90s. The 80s, we had, obviously the Rocky trilogies and whatnot.
Well, but you know what? Before we get to the 80s, I want to stay with baseball movies for a second. We're going to go back a little bit because we're going to go the antithesis of Field of Dreams. We're going to go, basically a baseball movie on crack. You remember the Bad News Bears?
Yes, I do. I haven't seen that one in forever. They had like 3 or 4 of them, didn't they? They had the Bad News Bears go to like Tokyo.
Yeah, they had the Bad News Bears at Japan. They had Bad News Bears 2. They did a remake with David Spade that we're not even going to acknowledge happened other than it happened.
They made a remake of that?
Yes, they did, actually. And no, it was fucking terrible.
See, I didn't even pretend like that didn't exist. I just didn't know that even existed.
No, I'm sorry.
Which is a good thing.
No, I sometimes you just got to call people out on their failures.
How about that was, I mean, you took it way back. I mean, that's kind of Rocky era. Actually,
yeah, it was like the late 70s, 77, 78.
What was the, it's been so long since I've seen that. What was the hotshot kid? What was his name? What was his name?
Oh, God, I got to look it up.
All right, whatever. Well, we'll get to that later. But yeah, good job on taking it back to the Bad News Bears. But let's talk about some other great baseball films. The Natural.
Oh, God. You're talking about going way back. Robert Redford in one of his career-defining roles.
Yeah, Roy Hobbs. I think, like, a few people I've met in my lifetime have, nicknamed themselves Roy Hobbs. And I'm just thinking, like, oh, my God, this is so cliched. You're the Natural. If you watch that movie, I watched a little bit of it, like, obviously throughout the years. I haven't watched it all, like, in its entirety in a very long time. But Roy Hobbs' character is not a really good guy. I mean, he's just not. He's kind of like this kind of shady guy. He's kind of a selfish guy. You don't really root for him towards the end of the film. And by the way, you talk about an ending. That is one of the iconic ones as well, with the whole kind of wrist bleeding and then hits the ball. And Redford was another guy who played baseball in high school. I think he played in college as well. He fit the part, even though he was a little older, but he fit that part. And, when he kind of swings the ball, he modeled his swing after Ted Williams. And he goes into the lights, and, the lights start sprinkling down. He's running around, the music. And I wish we downloaded the music actually now, but whatever. Good film. We had what else?
It was a Hollywoodized version of baseball.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like that mystery kind of player. I mean, you need one of those. Yeah, 8 Men Out. Remember the one about the famous
with the 1919 Black Sox.
Black Sox, which is actually a good film in itself as well.
Although the best telling of the Black Sox scandal was definitely by Katie Nolan on Drunk History.
Oh God, yes. Oh. Love of my life, Katie Nolan.
Yeah, all hail Queen Katie. Once we start to videotape these, you'll actually see we have a picture of Katie Nolan here in the studio.
Yes, and yes, all props due to the lovely Kate Nolan. Moving on from that, we have we're gonna go a bit of a different one, not a baseball film, but Hoosiers in 1986 with Gene Hackman.
We talk about another quintessential sports film. I actually saw a quote when I was doing my research for this week. And I thought this put it perfectly. If Rocky is your great sports individual underdog story, Hoosiers is your best example of that from a team aspect.
Exactly. And who can forget Dennis Hopper in that movie is amazing. He's like the alcoholic dad of one of the, the kids on the team. And he kind of like, he's a character that you root for, kind of finds redemption, then falls off the wagon again. But, it's Hoosiers is like, I've always been a Gene Hackman guy. So that's one of my favorites. That's probably in my top 5 as well. Are we missing any other 80s films? I mean, the good ones, the ones that stick out. We're not going to talk about Rocky 2 or Rocky 3, although Clubber Lang is the great character.
No. We talked about Rocky 3 and 4, and Rocky 2 is where the series jumped the shark when they had Adrian in the coma. But, there were some other good ones. I mean, if you want to go more on the comedy side of things, even though this movie really didn't have any plot at all, Caddyshack.
Oh, yeah.
Because if you look at Caddyshack as a movie, there was no plot to it whatsoever. Although the acting performances were great, right? This was kind of the beginning of what I like to call the Chevy Chase movie. Because Chevy Chase's movies, be it Caddyshack, be it Fletch, be it the Vacation series, his were a series of vignettes loosely tied together by a thin plot that was ultimately made to have the audience laugh all the way through before an explosive denouement at the end.
Yeah.
And who could forget Rodney Dangerfield?
He was that's what I was just about to mention. He was the best one. People always talk about Bill Murray's was it Spagler? Carl Spagler?
Yeah.
But I'm like, Rodney steals the film. And that was Rodney's first acting role. I mean, he was just a stand-up comedian. From what I remember reading about, he was so nervous because when he would Rodney was his one-liners, and he would kind of break these things out, and nobody was laughing because it was like a film. It sounded like a stand-up routine. But Rodney, Ted Knight,
the veteran actor from the Mary Tyler Moore Show.
Exactly. It's also wonderful.
Ted Knight kills his role.
This is incredible. I mean, I think my favorite. What's my favorite one was when Rodney and I guess his assistant, his Asian assistant, is just like, hey, you should get a bowl of soup with this, and but it looks good on you. And then the eye roll. I'm just like, oh my god.
He's still a meme on social media today. I mean, you see it on on Twitter and Facebook. It's like, well, we're waiting.
So many great quotable lines from that film. That's a good one. I didn't think about that one. Now let's let's jump back into the last 20 years or so, more relevant ones. It's funny how we talked about the 90s being kind of, the great sports renaissance,
sports movie decade.
Sports movie, decade. It had so much. Sports movies for kids, adults, teenagers. The 80s were kind of like, the more kind of class. I don't want to say classic, but kind of like the Naturals and the Field of Dreams and the Bull Durhams.
And we forgot the Karate Kid.
Well, I don't know.
It is a sports movie.
It's not a sports movie.
Hey, there was some serious betting action on the All Valley Karate Championships.
That's not a sports movie. Let's just leave that alone. It's a good one. It's a great film. That's not a sports movie. It's not.
Yeah, the real life Mr. Miyagi couldn't win me any money on that.
But let's touch upon the great sports movies of the last 20 years or so, from 2000 to now.
We mentioned Draft Day, which is an absolute classic.
Yeah. Reggie, I kind of find it, you got Talladega Nights.
Talladega Nights is one of the most quotable movies of all time.
It is.
It's one of my all-time favorites.
It's a funny film. Will Ferrell at his peak.
Yeah, I like to think of us as the podcast version of Shake and Bake.
Shake and Bake.
You're clearly Cal Naughton Jr., by the way.
But has there really been any sports films over the last 20 years that have really stuck out? I mean, just we have the ones, sentimental reasons. The Sandlot, Rocky. Have there been any that have stuck out in the last 20 years or so?
There's one that came out almost 20 years ago on the dot. Remember the Titans came out in September of 2000.
That's a good one. I mean, it was it's typical Disney kind of.
It's your very typical Disney sports movie, which they were really kind of getting into at the time, right? Because they had Cool Runnings in the early 90s that did really well, so they kind of figured there was like a niche there. They had Invincible they came out with. I'm sure I'm not missing some. They also had Miracle that came out a couple years after that, which actually was really good.
Miracle was a good one. I forgot about that one. Yeah, 1980 U.S. hockey team.
Yeah,
won the gold medal. Yeah,
exactly. Like
Kurt Russell. Did a good job.
That's one of those movies where you know the ending, but you're just there for the ride. But Remember the Titans had Denzel at his peak. Who played the other? Was that Bill Paxton or Bill Pullman? I always get those two mixed up.
It was. I know who you're talking about. I forgot his name as well. But I know who you're talking about. He's a good character. He was in Armageddon. He was in one of my.
I think it was Bill Paxton. No, it was Bill Paxton.
It's not Bill Paxton. It was just a guy. You find his name. But Remember the Titans. Very good. Not a big rewatchable for me. Not so much that I didn't, I disliked it. It was just more so of just like, I felt a lot of the kind of characters Will Patton. Will Patton.
Yeah.
And it's not one of those ones that I, like really stick. Again, a good film. I can only probably watch it one time. A lot of the dialogue feels kind of very, I don't want to say forced, but just kind of like hokey.
You'd say
It's
forced.
Disney.
It was forced.
Yeah,
it had a lot of good young stars, though. I mean, it had Donald Faison before he got Scrubs, Kate Bosworth in her first film role,
yes.
Ryan Gosling before anybody had heard of him.
Right.
So it was good to give some people kind of their launch. The Replacements came out in 2000.
Oh yeah, Keanu Reeves and Gene Hackman. Yeah,
Keanu Reeves and Gene Hackman, and there wasn't any quality to the film whatsoever, but at least it's a fun ride.
It's a fun ride. It's weird how, like, as far as a sports movie, how they kind of transitioned away from that. We had so much of it in like the 90s. That was probably the peak, the apex of like sports movies, the 90s, and we had a lot of it in the 80s. I mean, it's kind of started to become popular in the late 70s, but like the last 2000s and 2010 decades is just like nothing.
Yeah, to be
at least nothing memorable.
Nothing memorable. To be honest, from what I was able to find, the two most memorable sports franchises of the last 20 years, and this is just sad, are Bring It On and the Pitch Perfect series. And yes, those are sports movies.
Pitch Perfect is a sports movie?
Pitch Perfect is absolutely a sports movie.
I've only seen the first. Okay, apparently your definition of a sports movie compared to mine are different. What makes I'm gonna sit back. What makes Pitch Perfect a sports movie? And don't tell me competition.
That's exactly what it is. It's competition. It's not like
you're so lame,
actual
bro.
sport. Hey, acapella is an actual thing. I've lost a lot of money gambling on the National Collegiate Acapella Championships.
Are you that big of a degenerate, Regis?
Yes, I thought that people who listen to us knew that. But
okay, we're gonna scratch that last part. Pitch Perfect is not a sports film.
No, okay. We'll move on from this after I say this. Pitch Perfect 2, D2 The Mighty Ducks are the exact same movie.
I've never seen either, so I wouldn't know.
If you ever want to waste 4 hours of your life that you never hope you get back, do that, and then you will see those two are the exact same. But no, it kind of backs up your point. That's kind of why I said that. There really haven't been very many memorable sports movie franchises or individuals themselves other than the ones we kind of mentioned. And even those like Miracle and Remember the Titans and things like that don't have the kind of lasting power that, like those kids movies did that we mentioned.
Right.
Or some others and things like that. There are a couple, comedies that did okay. Longest Yard was funny.
You know what? Yeah, the cameos in The Longest Yard, the guest appearances, you had like ex-college football, ex-NFL. You had, obviously you had Nelly there. You had wrestlers there. It was pretty, I love.
Chris Berman did well.
Chris Berman, they had Jim Rome.
Yep.
I love that just because of the guests. It was just cool to see these guys that just like, who played not the warden, but the main guy in the security. He's kind of a famous actor. I thought he did a good job. He was an opposing quarterback.
Oh God! Because
anyway.
I'm trying to remember everybody else.
No, don't worry about it. It's fine. But I love all the other characters. I didn't particularly love Sandler's character. I kind of thought he looked out of place as an NFL quarterback. I just didn't really.
Yeah, he doesn't exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
He looks like Philip Rivers, but more of a bitch.
Chris Rock was it, and how cool was that to have Burt Reynolds in that film?
Oh God, Burt Reynolds, Hollywood's #1 star from 1974 to 1982.
Yeah, you see, I'm trying to go like my Burt Reynolds stash. I don't think I'm quite pulling it off.
I would try to do the Burt Reynolds laugh, but I just don't have it. I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to belabor your listening by trying it.
Yeah, but good call on that one. In The Longest Yard, it was probably the last Sandler movie I actually kind of laughed at. Thought it was funny.
Well, we're talking about sports movies. One of his first movies was a sports movie. Happy Gilmore, featuring a 25-year-old Julie Bowen as the lead female love interest.
Just in case if you don't know who that is, that's the mom on
the mom from Modern Family.
Modern Family. Yeah,
and she wouldn't even hit her peak for another 10 years.
Yeah. How about the infamous Bob Barker
Oh
fight?
God, Bob Barker
Bob
might
kicking his ass.
Let's put it this way: sports films are kind of designed to have a lot of cameos in them, just because of the way that they're constructed and who they're marketed to. I venture to say Bob Barker might be the best sports cameo in a movie that I can recall right now.
That fight scene was pretty realistic. Like, it looked pretty good. And our guy Carl Weathers is in that film.
That's right.
Yeah.
He was Chubbs.
And that was actually, how did we fucking miss Happy Gilmore? That was one of the good. That's one of like my favorites.
And of course, maybe one of the greatest villains of all time, Shooter McGavin. Christopher McDonald in his career-making performance.
He still gets. You know what? It was pretty cool. I remember a few years ago. Actually, might have been a decade ago. There was a picture of like Tiger Woods and Christopher McDonald, and Tiger kind of, and how lame Tiger could be, but even he was kind of like, me standing next to Shooter McGavin. It was pretty cool. That is a great villain.
It's kind of weird because that movie came out a year before Tiger Woods revitalizes the game of golf.
Yeah.
So the timing was perfect.
Yeah.
And secondly, I'd say Shooter McGavin was kind of the inspiration for another comedy that we kind of forgot, Dodgeball.
Vince Vaughn.
You're gonna tell me no, Ben Stiller's character, right?
No, I'm saying Vince Vaughn and Ben Stiller. I didn't get it.
You're gonna tell me Shooter McGavin and White Goodman aren't the same character?
Why? I mean, I can see similarities. I mean,
they both try to take over their rivals' property, if you will. They both are, established in this sport where these new people are trying to break in, and they can both completely lose their shit when the other one beats them.
Yeah,
so
Dodgeball was pretty good. Forgot about that one.
Yeah, we were trying to think of like good sports movies.
It's funny. Years. I think when I was thinking about like sports movies, I was thinking of ones that kind of stand out. Not so much comedies. I know probably comedies kind of took over the sports realm. I mean, you had Blades of Glory? Blades of Glory with
Will Ferrell
and John Heder, who, if you don't know John Heder, Napoleon Dynamite.
One of the most overrated movies of all time.
Yeah, I agree. But I guess sports films kind of transitioned to more comedy instead of more kind of like more coming of age or serious kind of movies as it was in the 80s, as it was particularly in the 90s. So,
the 80s and the early 90s were just a lot more family friendly of a time.
Family friendly, but very good too. I mean, I guess if we really could think about it, there's probably going to be a few more that could pop up over the last 20 years. But Dodgeball was a good one. The Longest Yard obviously was a good one. I don't know how they didn't think about that one. I really like that one a lot. But I think overall, just to kind of wrap all of this up, what is your favorite all-time sports movie?
My favorite all-time sports movie. I'm looking at this list of like 50 or 60.
You need a list for that?
Yes, I have like 50 or 60 here. You know what? I'm going to give us credit here for two films that we didn't talk about.
Okay.
Rudy, which I think is completely overrated.
Jesus, how did you forget Rudy?
He was offsides. That's why we forgot Rudy.
Holy freak. Dude, we should just turn in our sports man card right now. How the fuck did we forget that?
And how did we not segue from that out of Dodgeball? Because Vince Vaughn was in Rudy.
He was. Oh, wow. That's shameful, dude. That's shameful. Rudy, how did I forget? Oh, my God. Young Jon Favreau?
That's right, young Jon Favreau, and that's how Vince Vaughn and Jon Favreau ended up creating their friendship, which led to them making Swingers together.
Swingers is a good movie. I just saw it yesterday.
I just watched 2 days ago.
Yeah. But wow, Rudy. What's the other one?
Space Jam. technically a sports movie if you think about the way they're constructed and
yeah,
everything like that. And no, I mean, don't get me wrong. It was a Looney Tunes marketing vehicle that was trying to capitalize on Jordan, and they did it at the perfect time. But my God, that thing was a piece of garbage.
It was. It's probably the worst kind of like officiated basketball game in the history, whether it's animation or real. It's like that worst unofficiated game ever.
And to think there's going to be a second one. LeBron just came out this week wearing a hat with the new Space Jam movies logo on it.
We'll see how that kind of plays out. Nothing will ever beat the original. I mean,
No,
when you had Michael Jordan coming back to basketball, you know,
you talk about that. It's the timing of it was perfect.
the timing of it was perfect, and you know the Bugs Bunny. You remember the Hair Jordan commercials from the Super Bowl like years before?
Yeah,
it was just a perfect combination. LeBron kind of doing it now. It's kind of like lame, but whatever. I mean, you know. We'll just see how that does. I can't believe we forgot Rudy.
No, we also.
Oh,
well, I mean, there's a few others. We also forgot Days of Thunder.
Well, we already had an hour to do this. I mean, Days of Cole Trickle. You know.
Yeah.
I mean, you know. It's,
Tom
Cruise.
Yeah. Well, and another Tom Cruise sports movie, All the Right Moves, beginning of his career with Craig T. Nelson.
Early Tom Cruise.
Yeah.
That was actually not a bad film.
No, it was.
A young Leah Thompson. Oof. I mean, that's actually pretty good. I mean, look, we obviously were not gonna hit on all of them. Regis, but Rudy, that's shameful. We should both bow our heads in shame for that one, because how did we forget that one? That's one of the great all-time stories. I don't know how true it is. I don't know how true it is at the end.
We spent half the show on the 90s, and
that
came out
somehow
in 93.
slipped through the cracks. Hey, you know, what can we say? You know, look, it happens.
That's what the Reggie and Regis podcast is, people. We are raw. We are almost exclusively uncut and unfiltered, and when we fuck up, we own it.
Yeah. But anyway, you know, it happens. But that's a good call out, Rudy. My all-time personal favorite, the ones that I can watch. Oh wow, probably Bull Durham. I love the chemistry between the three main actors, Susan Sarandon. Obviously, we're going to disregard Tim Robbins' pitching style. I mean,
no, he's a great actor.
Again, no. But you know how I said Costner just pulls off that baseball,
right?
His swing, everything. You know, Robbins, great actor, but you know, I love the Nuke LaLoosh character, but yeah, his pitching form was kind of like his mechanics were just
almost as good as Jamie Foxx as a quarterback in Any Given Sunday.
Exactly, which is another one we didn't touch on. 1999.
Yeah, LL Cool J before he realized he was old.
Al Pacino before his hair went to shit.
Cameron Diaz when she was still fucking smoke show.
And they had cameos from the great Jim Brown, Lawrence Taylor. I believe there's probably one more that I'm not thinking of right now, but that's actually hell. Even if you think, here's one. Jessie Spano. At the very beginning, she's one of
Elizabeth Berkley from Showgirls.
She's one of the girls that I guess like tries to pick up Pacino's character in like a Miami club.
Wow, that's what Showgirls did to Elizabeth Berkley's career.
She has like a 4-line appearance in like this big Oliver Stone movie.
Jesus.
But Bull Durham is my go-to.
And my go-to only because it was the crux of the sports I was playing and like the crossroads of my childhood. I gotta go Varsity Blues.
That's a good one though.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like if there's nothing else on and it's on a cable channel or you're going through your streaming service and you're looking for something to watch, it pops up. It's like, yeah, I'll throw that on.
That is actually, I haven't seen it in forever. I probably should pop it in with all the time that I have like in this day and age. That's a good one. That's a good one. John Voight was pretty good in that. He was excellent.
He made a great villain.
John was normally and they made us say he was kind of like a villain as well. Yeah, he's actually one of those actors. He could probably pull off good villains and bad villains. But
not only that, he can also play a father figure if you need him to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And okay, that's a good one. So, any closing thoughts, my man?
Hopefully
this was a fun one.
This was a fun one. And if you guys listening at home, want us to go like deep dive on a certain movie or like a certain movie genre, or give us ideas that we can offshoot off of this, feel free to let us know. You can email us at reggieandregispodcast@gmail.com. That's REGGIE, the letter N, and Regis, REGIN, podcast@gmail.com. We are also on Twitter at Reggie and Regis Pod. We're also on YouTube as well under Reggie and Regis Podcast, and I believe we are on some streaming platforms as well.
All right, we have 6 of them. We are on Anchor, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Breaker, Overcast, Radio Public. We're also on YouTube. Feel free to just subscribe to us. Tell us, feedback. Again, please, anything. Just you enjoy us, you hate us. Just let us know you care.
If we're great, tell us. If we suck, tell
us. We'll love you.
If you think that there are other cardinal sins in movies we forgot in this podcast, like we caught ourselves do with Rudy earlier,
and we should get hammered for that.
Know.
You should. In fact, I am. Please send us an email. How could you guys forget Rudy? You guys are stupid. We will love you for that. Are you with me?
I still can't get over the fact we forgot Rudy for 55 minutes.
I am too. You see what it's doing to us. Send us an email about that, or leave a comment on our YouTube section. And we'll love you for it.
And in this era where we're kind of at a dearth of live sports content, if you have any ideas for sports related topics you want us to break down, again, feel free to let us know. You guys are the ones that kind of help make us determine what the show's gonna be. So again, we're still kind of gnashing this. This is only episode 8. Let us know what you, the consumers, want.
So, Regis, next week you want to do a deep dive on the Bulls documentary, Last Dance?
They're
going to be halfway done, so we could kind of talk about that. We'll see. We'll play around with some ideas.
You know what? We have 7 days to think about it. God knows what could happen in between now and then.
With that being said, I am Reggie. He is Regis. Thank you again for joining us on episode 8 of the Reggie and Regis podcast.
See you guys next week.
We are out.